everyone, and welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It'd be greatly appreciated if you did. If you are excited about Supra content, A Supra content, definitely subscribe, definitely like, definitely share, definitely leave a comment below. We've got plenty of work to do on this 7M GTE. I'll fill you guys in the backstory on this car later. It's not too great, but I think it's important, and I think it lays the groundwork for this entire thing. Very first thing we're going to start with is actually retorquing the head studs. So, for those that know, I guess a design flaw? I don't know. A service manual flaw? Something. With the head studs and the head gaskets for the 7Ms. It does run, and it runs great. It sounds amazing. But just for our own sanity and for our own safety and for our own accountability, because I did not do this swap and I did not do really anything on this car yet, other than get it to run, that needs to happen. So that's where we're gonna start. Let's do it. One of the things I was thinking about when I was taking these valve covers off was if these head studs were gonna be accessible or not without removing the cams. And fortunately for the 7M, yes, they are 100% accessible without removing the cams. This is like the greatest feeling ever. Jesus, this is the greatest feeling ever. Look, so removing the cams isn't bad, but all of this extra stuff has to come out. You know, and it just adds so much more to the job. But the valve covers are off, and everything is good. But look at these valve covers. At first glance, it looks fine. But then when you look deeper, you see this. That is RTV. Globbed. All in the channel for the valve cover gasket. This is ridiculous. Like, not just like a little bit in the corners, like normal. No. It's globbed throughout the entirety of the gasket on both valve covers. Then, to make matters worse, there's a bolt broken off inside of it. Excellent. On top of that, this hole is stripped. And so is this one. You can't see it, but this hole is also stripped. And that's where the coil packs mount. But we're going to fix all of that. That's part of the whole thing. We're going to fix all of it. We're going to go over all of this and fix all of this buffoonery. So, I'm going to get the torque settings for these head studs, and we're going to make sure that they're good. Fortunately, this motor does have ARP head studs in it, so our torque settings are going to be different than what factory says. And according to the ARP website, for the 7M GTE, our torque value is 90. What I'm going to do is, the very first thing I'm going to do before I even do that, is I'm just going to put the torque wrench on it, and I'm going to see what happens. If it keeps going, then it keeps going. If it doesn't, then okay, whatever. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, good news, bad news. So the head studs are torqued down now to 90 per the specs. Did it twice. In fact, I did it 2.5 times just to be sure. And a good thing I did it twice, because the first time I did it, I put the torque wrench on there, and the stud or the nuts on the studs started to move anywhere from 45 foot-pounds to about 70. That's when they started to move, which is rough. So they're all properly torqued now. And when I say between, it's because they all shifted at a different torque range, which makes it even worse. So I think it's safe to say that this wasn't torqued down at all. They were just tightened to whatever felt right, and then they called it good. One of them, the torque wrench actually got up to 100. That was on the first round. So on the second round, when I had tightened all the other ones down to 90, and I came back to that one, it started spinning at 70. So they're all at 90 now, which is unfortunate. So it's an excellent thing that we did this, and it wasn't even my idea to begin with. I didn't even know about the head stud issue with the head gasket issue with the 7Ms. It was actually the owner that told me to do it, and it's a good thing he did, because that would have been catastrophic. But fortunately, that's taken care of now, and we can move on to other things. I'm thinking we should just go head first and dive right into the hard stuff, which is all the wiring. All of the interior wiring is just basically kind of a little bit messy. All the gauges and everything else that was installed in here, it was just done wrong. All of it, completely wrong. So all of this stuff has to come out. Everything in here has to come out. The boost controller, all the gauges. He wants an SAFC installed in here. A little retro, but it'll work. Filming wise, it's not very exciting. I can't really film that. I mean, I can explain what I'm doing, but we'll see how that goes. Another thing we're doing is we're installing a catch can in here. So this is the factory, I don't want to call it PCV, but I guess that's what it is. This is the factory setup here. So it's this pipe that runs to the turbo intake, and then the two hoses on the valve covers, and then to the throttle body. So what we're going to do with the catch can is delete this entire thing. This whole thing is going to go away. And the can is going to run just from these two ports here directly to the vented can, which I'm going to mount here in this corner here. I'm going to make a bracket for it. And then we'll just cap that, and then we'll cap that. And that'll clean up the bay a little bit while also providing a better breathing system for this. So it's not being recirculated back into the intake, and it'll keep everything clean and, you know, standard catch can stuff. I've been messing with the wiring in here for a little while now, deleting the fuel pressure sensor for the gauge. Don't need that. We deleted that. The EGT sensor, it's stock. There's absolutely no reason for that. We deleted that. Then I got some of the wiring already cleaned up. I made a new ground here. This is the new firewall ground. It's much better than the stock one. I routed the wires a little bit better under there that run over here for the boost controller, and there's also a bunch of junctions for vacuum lines, factory ones that run under there. It's really, really weird. And this is the hole here that they made to route all the stuff through, and it's right under the slave cylinder. It's actually hidden pretty well, so that's a pretty good spot that they put it. I removed the boost sensor from here on the firewall. It was installed with a self-tapping screw, which this hole ruined this entire top side of his firewall, which is unfortunate. Just for future reference for those of you who will be installing boost gauges into their car, the boost solenoid, not the solenoid, the boost sensor does not need to go in the engine bay, period. Do not run a wire through your firewall and put the boost sensor in your engine bay. Just run a vacuum line through the firewall and put the boost sensor under your dash. It does not need to be in the engine bay. There's absolutely no reason for that. It's destructive. Next is to deal with this mess down here. There is what's left of the wideband. This kick panel here has some switches on it, which the wires run to nowhere, so I gotta figure that one out. All of this here, this like 100 gauge wire, this is what's tapped off into the boost controller, so that needs to be removed and fixed. Then there's the whole DEFI controller here, and then all the wires that run out the back of it. All of this needs to be pulled out and reinstalled. And then there's whatever this wire was for, and whatever these wires were for, and this wire, and that wire, and his wire, and her wire, and everything. Alright, everything is pulled out from the center, and everything is kind of slung out from being routed under the dash. And this is all of it here. This is a mixture of, so this is the other half. This is the patch harness for the radio. This was tapped into. We're not doing that no more. This is the EGT, this is boost controller, this is some other stuff, that's some other stuff. This is the antenna for the alarm. I gotta put that somewhere. And then it all runs up here, and it all basically attaches to itself again. And then there's more stuff that goes into the fuse box. So the next step after this, now that I have everything out, is to mess with the fuse box. To actually go in here and go wire by wire by wire and see what's tapped into what and everything else. This is the hard part. Wiring, it's just so tedious, and there's just so much to it, and like you never know what people are thinking when they do stuff, and you gotta go back, and then you're like, your logic, it's just such a mess, but all of it's going to be sorted out. Don't worry about it. It'll be good again. Short update. I've been at this for a couple hours now. I ended up having to pull the factory alarm, or not the factory, but the aftermarket alarm. It's a Viper. It's pretty nice. The Viper alarm all the way out. I had to delume the entire thing and run it all the way back to the source. And that's where I have to start in order to get everything sorted out and correct. So, fortunately, on the back of the control box is the entire pinout. So it makes this whole process like pretty simple, although it may not look like it. So starting here at the source, this wire here is a main power wire. It came out of its terminal. So I'm gonna get this fixed, and then I can start putting everything back up. I had to pull out the entire cluster as well to get to everything in the back, and it's come apart a lot more than I thought it would for this process. It sucks a lot because it's hot down here, and I'm having to fit between the steering wheel and this little space with the light and the mosquitoes, and it's just such a mess. But I'm powering through it. But yeah, like I said, I'll start here and I'll work my way back and gradually loom this better than it was, and stuff everything away, and then find out what all this extra crap wire is for, and then we'll keep on moving.